Hi guys, welcome to this video. This is Prashant. I'm the founder of Wordpandit and I'm bringing this series to you. This series of videos is 60 days to CAT 2020 and I'll be dealing with a lot of important topics in this video series. And today we have a very important topic to talk about: how to deal with low scores in SIMCATs and AIMCATs. This is from the perspective of VARC, but you can apply these same pointers for QA and LRDI as well, right? Some of the things that I'm going to talk about are applicable for all three sections, right? A lot of you are struggling with SIMCATs and AIMCATs. I get a lot of messages every day. People are worried. What should you do about it, right? And I'm going to give you some brutally honest pieces of advice here today as well. I'll try to keep this as relevant as possible, but there is only one caveat that I have to mention at the start of the video. I generally like to keep my videos short, but this is going to be a rather lengthy video, so I need your time and attention. You have to stick to this video right till the end. Again, I'm asking you for it here. I think ask is too strong a word. I'm requesting your company till the end of this video, and if you are taking the exam and if you're scoring low in SIMCATs and AIMCATs, this is going to be helpful for you, right? So let's get started. What are we waiting for? First thing, you're struggling with SIMCATs and AIMCATs. Fair enough. Remember, the first thing I want you to keep in mind is, and this is super cliched advice, it's boring. Somebody somewhere must have already said this to you. These are just mocks. These are not the actual paper. Since these are just mocks, these are meant to be taken as practice tests, right? And it is okay not to score well in practice tests, right? What is the purpose of taking a mock? The purpose of taking mocks is to learn, to improve, to perfect test taking skills. That's what you're doing. So even if you're scoring miserably low, right? And I hope you're doing better than that, right? If you're scoring, say, what's the absolute bare minimum you can score? You can score a 0, right? Or you can score negative marks, but when I say 0 in terms of percentiles, I mean that, right? So you're right at the bottom as well. You're in the bottom half. You're in the 0 to 25 range, 25 to 50 range, 50 to 75 range, 75 to 90 range. Whatever range of percentiles you are in, there is always scope for improvement. If you're in the 90s or if you're in the 80s, you've got to look at the 90s. If you're in the 70s, you've got to look at the 80s. That's it, as simple as that. Do not be too harsh on yourself, right? Scores are important. I completely understand that. They give you a kind of a boost, a psychological boost, and they give you it reconfirms, right? We are all human beings and we have these biases, right? So effectively doing well in mocks is nothing else, but it's just a confirmation bias, right? And what do I mean by a confirmation bias? Our bias is confirmed that we are preparing well for the test, right? So that is our thought process, right? We're just seeking confirmation. Now you can seek this confirmation from one other place. If you focus on the process of your preparation, if you focus on the fact that what is it that is required on an everyday basis for you to execute on the things that you're supposed to do. If you do that, then you will not only look at these mock scores, you will not look at these validations, right? You will also look at the fact that you're preparing every day. At the end of the day, remember, there's only one word that kills you, that is regret. As long as you don't have regrets, you put in your best effort, you focused on the process, you've done the things that you could have done, that's it. I know this is all sounding very cliched. I'm sounding like bit of a motivational speaker here, but I guess you need these words right now. So cliched advice to get started with, even if you're struggling with SIMCATs and AIMCATs, does not matter. Please perfect, learn, improve, figure out what's going on and perfect your test taking skills. That is super important. That has to be the learning which has to be derived from every test, right? So this is thing number one. Thing number two, what I'll do is I'll talk about two types of scores now, two types of low scores. You're scoring consistently low, right? And the other type is you're going up and down. Yeah, there's inconsistency and there are lots of low scores in the middle. Now, the moment you're scoring consistently low scores, right, the first thing that you need to do is reevaluate your targets when you take the test, right? So I'll just take an example. So for example, you're scoring in the 40 to 50 percentile range, or you are we'll take up the example of another type of student. You are in the 70 to 80 percentile range. Both these students, student A, student B, they are not satisfied with their scores, right? They're like, they aim higher. Now the thing is, whatever percentile range you are in, if you are at a 50 today, or if you are at an 80 today, right? Please don't expect to be at an 80 tomorrow, or don't expect to be at a 99 or a 95 tomorrow, right? So change that expectation, reevaluate your targets, whatever you are scoring. So for example, let's assume that we have a 25 question pattern this year per section, 75 marks per section. If you are scoring say 25 in VA in a particular test out of 75, your next target has to be 30, or it has to be even 27 or 28, right? That's it. Just completely remove the baggage. Now just imagine this, your average scores for the last 5 tests were 25, and the next test you're not aiming for a 40, but you're aiming for a 27 or a 28. Just imagine the kind of mental relief that you will have. With every test, what you do, you increase these targets slowly. Remember, when you bring down this target, what happens instantly? Instantly, the moment you've taken down this target, the pressure on you goes down. Now you don't have to solve every question in the test. Since you don't have to solve every question in the test, question selection, I'm writing it in short form, question selection becomes important. And this is how you improve. You remove the pressure of yourself. You don't tell yourself I have to solve everything in the paper. You build your brace. With every subsequent test, you focus on improving your selection of questions. You focus on reducing your errors. You focus on VARC. You focus on eliminating gut feel and solving the question logically. Logically means you eliminate. So for example, if B is the correct answer for a particular question, you don't only select B, but you rule out A, C, D, right? At least with some cursory logic, right? You have some reasoning behind that question. So you improve your question selection, you use elimination, you adapt better to the pressure, and this is by reevaluating your targets, by not pushing yourself too hard, right? I'm not saying that if you're scoring 25 out of 75 in a particular section, you have targets of 15. I'm not saying that, but work with small increments, work with things which are doable, and always average out your last 5 scores, right? Now this is how you improve your exam efficiency. This is how you improve your method of taking exams, right? That's the key in this case. Your exam efficiency has to increase. People dealing with consistently low scores, your focus right now has to be improving your exam efficiency. You do that by improving your question selection, lowering your targets, and gradually increasing your attempts, right? And trying to find questions that you can easily solve. Minimize your mistakes. That's it. Broad 3-4 things. Take away the pressure of yourself, reevaluate your targets. When you do that, the pressure is taken off yourself. Step 1, so you're going to reevaluate your targets. That's step number 1. That is one thing that you're going to do. Step number 2 that you're going to do is, in this particular case, is you're going to focus on question selection. Since your targets are lowered, since you've reevaluated them, right, you're going to focus on question selection, right? Step number 3 that you're going to focus on, you're going to focus on reducing your number of mistakes. Just reiterating this for you. So you reevaluate your targets, right? And you lower your pressure on yourself. Second thing, you focus on your question selection. Third thing that you do in this particular case is very simply, you take once you've taken the pressure off yourself, you focus on your question selection, you reduce your mistakes, reduce your silly errors, right? Now you do all of this, you have done one thing in the test. And if you use a little bit of logic, what is it that you've done in this particular case? You've done something very, very simple. You have taken out expectations out of the picture, right? So expectations are completely taken out of the picture. You're not expecting too much of yourself. You're not putting yourself under too much pressure. So things are simpler for yourself, right? And B, you have now, without increasing your knowledge base, right? Without increasing the amount of things you know, you're just working with your existing knowledge to improve your exam efficiency, right? So first thing, score better with what you know already, right? That's one thing. So if you are in the consistently low scores range, this is what I want you to do with your next AIMCAT or SIMCAT. Make sure you reevaluate your targets, improve question selection, reduce the errors, and it's going to work for you, right? You're just going to gradually improve. The next type of students is if you have inconsistent scores. This is a tough one, right? Because when you go up and down that graph, it gets super demotivating, right? Because on these days you feel super happy, and these days you feel super low, and then you don't know what to do. What is it that you have to do, right? Now, in such a scenario, the most critical thing is, remember the learnings from the first case, right? Taking the pressure off yourself, question selection, reducing errors, all of that applies. All of that applies to you as well. But if you're suffering from inconsistent scores, there is one more thing that applies to you. And again, I will take the path of logic to justify this. Now, if your scores are low, right? If your scores are low, consistently low, you know that you need to work on your knowledge. You need to work more on your knowledge. But if your scores are inconsistent, that also implies one thing. That implies that something changed between these two attempts, right? Your level cannot change overnight. Your level cannot change in a week, right? You cannot become a bad student in a week. So when I say your level can't change, I mean you cannot reduce your ability in a week, right? That does not happen. Now, when your scores go down, your job now is to identify the difference between the two attempts. Either the types of questions were different, or the questions were more difficult than you have normally solved, or the question types were different, or your mental state was not the same, or there were some external factors because of which you could not focus on the test. Something has to change, right? And your job in the analysis is to figure out what that change was. So for example, with respect to RCs or LRDI, what could have possibly changed is the type or nature of content. Probably you had LRDI sets that you had never solved before in your life, or you had RCs from areas that you are just not comfortable reading. You hate philosophy and the whole test was based on philosophy, right? Now that is your immediate action point. Those types of LRDI sets, those types of RCs, you've got to go search, seek, and fix them. That is what you've got to do. That is going to be the benefit of taking the mock. Sitting and sulking, thinking about the fact that you've scored low and nothing can change, does not help you. What helps you instead is going and fixing the things that went wrong in that particular test, right? So this is super critical if you're getting low, inconsistent scores. So you get low scores, you work on the things that I talked about in the previous slide. If you get inconsistent scores, you identify what is it that went wrong with your attempt. That is something which is super critical, right? Next thing that you've got to keep in mind, how to fix these issues, right? We've talked about it. Another thing is mock analysis is key, guys, right? The plain and simple logic is you cannot get a low score without struggling in a few things, right? Once your scores are low, that means there are areas that need to be fixed. These areas could be question selection, right? These areas could be, for example, you're not comfortable reading RCs from particular areas, right? You could have issues in particular areas. You just are not able to read things from particular areas, particular topics. You're very uncomfortable with them, right? Identify which are these areas, topics, questions that are troubling you. Go ahead and fix them, right? Remember, VARC, you don't have scope for leaving topics. QA, you still have scope for leaving out a few topics which you're not too comfortable with at this stage. You can say, right, fine, this is just 5% of the paper, I can let go of it. VARC, 60, 70, 80% is RCs. RCs is the major chunk of it, and then you've got VA in it, right? So since that does not leave you with a lot of room, right? You almost got a 70, 73, 74% to 26, 25% split in RCs and VA portion. There is not much to lose, right? There is not much to pick from these topics. Hence, analyze the mocks. Identify the areas that you're struggling with. As I talked in the previous slide, go and fix those areas. Super vital to do that. Again, the approach here is based on the fact that you cannot sulk, but you have to go and fix things, right? Because there are issues. Simple logic is, if there were no issues, there will be nothing to fix, right? Next thing is, take the example of VAR. So you can apply the same skills to QA and LRDI, right? Of what to do in an analysis. Very I'll also come up with a detailed video for mock analysis as well subsequently, right? But I'm giving you a small hint of what is it that you need to do for VARC. First thing that you've got to understand is understand your time distribution and question selection. Make sure you do that. You identify that you did not waste a lot of time on particular RCs, particular type of content, right? Make sure you identify your question selection. Did you get it right? Did you have clarity with the topics of RCs that you were going to solve in the first attempt? You were going to keep it for later, or you dived into topics that you should have skipped first, right? Identify the topics, subjects, areas, fields with RCs. You have to identify the areas that you are struggling with. Focus on these, right? Focus on the RC content that is challenging to you, and go and read from these areas. Go and understand more about these areas. Go and solve more RCs from these areas. That is what you've got to do in order to fix your problem area, right? So that's one simple way of looking at things, some simple way of analysis. You can do the same thing for QA, right? Pick up any topic that you're struggling with, go and use that and apply that. You can all and do these things with that particular topic, right? My simple way of doing QA was back in the day. This was like years and years back when I took the exam seriously and I appeared as an aspirant, right? Whichever topic that I used to struggle with, bulk practice questions for that particular topic, get done with it, go through that pain, and by the end of it, you should have, see, if you're not a natural solver for QA, I'm not a natural solver. I know I was a person who always needs the methods to solve the question. So I went through the route of hard work. Go and do that hard work. You don't have any other choice. That's how you go and fix things, right? Next thing, need more help with these. I'll take up another sample scenario here for you guys. Our first scenario was the kind of skills that you needed to apply, right? Second example here is, for example, you're facing an issue, you were not able to complete VARC in time, right? Now this led to a low attempt. Remember, if you have a very low attempt in the test, so if you take a particular mock test and you have a low attempt in it and your accuracy is not great, right? So if your accuracy is not great, it's on the lower side, low attempt plus low accuracy is going to kill your score, right? It's a fatal combination. Everything is connected. How do you fix this? Simple. Take as many time tests and timed RCs as possible, right? Just increase your speed of solving RCs. Remember, I'm not talking about reading speed. Reading speed is not that big a factor. We all read at a decent enough speed to understand content. But the thing is, our ability to comprehend that content and solve RCs within that time limit, that is what is critical. So you take as many timed RCs as possible. Don't give yourself that leeway. Don't pick up an RC from here and there without a timer and solve it and then feel happy, oh, I got all the questions right, that means my comprehension is great. No, your comprehension needs to be great within a specified time limit. That's when your comprehension is great, and that is what you need to focus on. So if you're not able to comprehend, if you're not able to complete VARC in time, you take a lot of time tests, you take timed RCs, you take them in, solve groups of RCs, you take a lot of section tests, right? You make sure you put yourself under that test. Remember, in the 40-minute pattern, the challenge is additional, right? You have additional things to do, right? And the time limit is that much stricter. Hence, taking a lot of time practice makes much more sense in the present times, right? Now, next thing is you're struggling with another sample scenario. You were not able to balance VA and RC. So another kind of issue that you're facing. So the first issue was one sample scenario that we picked was you were not able to complete it within the same time limit. What if you're not able to balance VA and RC? What is it that you need to do in that case? Keep it really simple, silly. That's it. CAT. It's a simple, silly acronym, but you can keep it simple, right? How is it? You practice in mocks and section tests different combinations. For example, you solve all RCs first, then VA, then you solve VA first, then you solve RCs, then all the RCs, or another combination is you solve a couple of RCs, then VA, then you go back to RCs. You try out these different combinations, right? There are n number of permutations and combinations which are possible. Please go ahead, make sure, try it out. Remember the first slide I said right at the start, mock scores are not that important actually. Only one score matters, that is your CAT exam. So try out these different scenarios. What is the harm? Try these out, see what works for you. No two people are the same. No two approaches can work for, no two people can work with the same approach at times. Don't make any hard and fast rules for yourself. Go practically apply this for yourself and figure out what works for you, right? So these are all the different things that you can apply immediately to your mocks. Those AIMCATs and SIMCATs which are giving you sleepless nights, these are things that you've got to do with them, right? So instead of these tests troubling you, you trouble these tests back, you experiment with these, you try to figure out what's going wrong, right? Because if you do that, then that is when you're getting the maximum possible out of these tests. What are the other factors that complicate my mock attempts? What is it that is hurting your mock attempts, right? One thing for starters you've got to remember is the level of mocks does vary very widely, which in turn has an impact on your scores, right? They can be no pain mocks, there can be maddening mocks, you have the complete spectrum of them, right? And at times it does not make a lot of sense to read into these mock scores and get too emotional about them. Always focus on the prep part. Always focus on what you can control. Whatever you can control and improve and work with, that is all you got to focus on. So at times don't worry about the mocks as well. They can get wildly unrealistic as well, right? I'm not saying there's no learning in them. You even learn in those mocks. You learn new things, you have some learnings, you understand the kind of content which is a challenge to you, but that's it. Don't read too much into some of these mocks, right? You've got to be practical about them, right? Next thing is at times things fall like a domino, right? What do I mean by this? You start a mock badly and it just goes down the drain. Do remember, it is super important to use the first 10 minutes really well, right? So use the first 10 minutes really well. Focus on the first 10 minutes. Make sure that you get some attempts. Make sure you do a few things right in the first 10 minutes and you are able to build some momentum, right? So the first 10 minutes are the key. Remember, if you get stuck with an RC in the first 10-12 minutes, you've not solved an RC, you've not made sense of it, and then you try to move ahead, you are going to struggle. You would have lost momentum in the test and you would be feeling a lot of stress and you'll make a lot of errors and it will all go downhill. So start a passage, go through it. If it makes sense in the first 2-3 minutes, stick with it, else shift to something else. Use those first 10 minutes to get some attempts in, right? That's very important, right? At times we get too emotional with some questions. We just get stuck with questions, with RCs, with QA questions, LRDI sets, right? Remember, it's okay to leave questions from topics that you're super confident about. Absolutely okay. This is not a test of your ego, but it is a test of your skills, logic, pragmatism. You've got to show that practical ability to move on in a test. You can't solve a question. You may have solved questions like that hundreds of times before taking the test. Does not matter. You go back after the mock test, figure out the mistake you made, why you were not able to crack it, but in the test itself, you move on to the next question. That is super critical. Don't get emotional about questions. Leave your ego out of it, right? That's as simple as that. That's what you got to do. That's all for today, guys. These are all the factors which are killing your SIMCATs, which are killing your AIMCATs. These are all the small little things. As I said, this was a long video. I said I had this caveat right at the start. I hope you've stuck with me right till this end and you've identified the different issues that probably you're suffering from. I talked about lots of issues, lots of things. I hope you are going to be genuinely helped out by this video. You'll fix the things that you can with the help of this video. This is Prashant signing off. Thank you very much for watching this video and happy learning.